33 kilometers that shook the world. February 28, 2026. The world woke up to a headline that analysts had warned about for decades, but somehow never truly believed would happen. The Strait of Hormuz, a narrow strip of water just 33 kilometers wide at its narrowest point. A passage so small you could theoretically see from one side to the other on a clear day. Closed. Iran announced it. The world felt it immediately. 150 tankers carrying millions of barrels of oil suddenly going nowhere. Global oil prices spiking 10% in days. LNG shipments grinding to a halt. European gas prices jumping 50%. Airline stocks tumbling. Supply chains already fragile, snapping. All because of 33 kilometers. The ancient Greeks had a word for this kind of place. Klysura, a narrow pass, a choke point. They knew that in war, controlling the pass meant controlling everything beyond it. But Hormuz is not a mountain pass. It's water. It's international waters. It belongs to everyone, and therefore in a crisis, it belongs to no one. Today we're going to ask the questions that don't fit into news headlines. What does it mean when geography becomes a weapon? What gives a nation the right or the power to close a passage that the entire world depends on? And when 33 kilometers can hold the global economy hostage, who is really the hostage? This is the Hormuz leverage. Part 1, the Achilles heel of the global economy. Let's start with the numbers, because without them, you can't understand the philosophy. 20% of the world's oil, not total oil, seaborne oil. The oil that actually moves between countries. 1 in every 5 barrels on a tanker passes through the Strait of Hormuz. 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas, LNG, the fuel that keeps Europe warm in winter, that powers factories in Asia, that countries are scrambling for as they transition away from coal. Who depends on this? Japan, 90% of its oil comes through Hormuz. South Korea, 80%. India, 70%. China, 50% and rising every year. The countries that produce the oil, Saudi Arabia, Iran, UAE, Kuwait, Iraq, Qatar, they sit around the Gulf like passengers in a waiting room, with only one door out. And that door is controlled, at least partially, by their biggest rival. Aristotle once wrote that nature does nothing in vain. Every feature of the natural world has a purpose, but Hormuz feels like a cruel joke. Put the world's largest concentration of fossil fuels in one place, then give it an exit so narrow that a few mines, a few drones, a few speedboats could shut it down. Then make sure that exit is controlled by a nation that has spent 45 years in conflict with the world's superpower. This is not design, this is irony. Clausewitz, the Prussian military philosopher, wrote that war is the continuation of politics by other means. But Hormuz suggests something else. Geography is the continuation of war by permanent means. Politics changes, regimes change, alliances change. But the Strait of Hormuz, it's been there for millions of years. It will be there long after the United States and Iran are footnotes in history books. And that's the problem. Because as long as it's there, the leverage exists. The threat exists. The weapon exists, waiting to be picked up. Part 2, Asymmetric Endurance, Iran's strategic philosophy. To understand why Iran closed the strait, you have to understand something fundamental about Iranian strategic thinking. Iran cannot win a conventional war against the United States. This is not opinion, it's math. The US military budget is larger than Iran's entire economy. The US has bases surrounding Iran. The US has technology, training, alliances. So if you're Iran, what do? You change the game. The philosopher Sun Tzu wrote 2,500 years ago, "Know your enemy and know yourself, and you will not be imperiled in 100 battles." Iran knows itself. It knows its weaknesses, and it knows its strengths. Its strength is not its navy, it's not its air force, it's its position, its geography, its ability to make the region ungovernable, unlivable, unprofitable for anyone who challenges it. This is what strategists call asymmetric warfare. The weaker power doesn't try to match the stronger power where the stronger power is strong. It attacks where the stronger power is weak. And where is America weak? The American voter's wallet. Every time oil prices go up, Americans get angry. They blame the president. They demand action. They want the pain to stop. Iran knows this. They've studied it. They've watched oil shocks in the 1970s bring down administrations. They've seen how sensitive the American political system is to economic pain. So when Ali Larijani, Iran's Supreme National Security Council chairman, says, "The Strait of Hormuz will either be a peaceful and prosperous strait for everyone, or a failing and bitter strait for the belligerent," he's not just making a threat, he's explaining their strategy. If we can't have peace and prosperity on our terms, then no one will have peace and prosperity. We will make the strait bitter for everyone until the pain of conflict exceeds the pain of compromise. The philosopher Thomas Hobbes wrote that in a state of nature, life is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. The international system is, in many ways, a state of nature. There's no world government, no global police, no one to enforce rules when a country decides to break them. In that kind of world, the strong do what they can, and the weak, they do what they must. Iran's strategy is not the strategy of the strong. It's the strategy of the weak. But it's not weak. It's asymmetric. It's patient. It's designed to make the cost of conflict so high that the stronger power decides it's not worth it. Vali Nasser, a scholar at Johns Hopkins University, put it this way: Iran is turning this into a test of wills. They want to make the war so costly that Washington asks, "Is this worth it?" And that's the question, isn't it? Is it worth it? Is keeping the strait open worth a war? Is defending every tanker worth the cost? Is confronting Iran worth the risk of escalation? These are not military questions. They're philosophical questions. Questions about value, about cost, about what we're willing to sacrifice. Part 3. The price of conflict. Global fallout. Let's talk about price, not in the abstract, in real numbers. When Iran closed the strait, oil prices jumped 10 to 12% almost immediately. Brent crude hit $114 a barrel, the highest since 2022. European gas prices? Up 50% in a matter of days. Airlines? Their stocks dropped 5.8% on average. Fuel is their biggest cost after labor. Shipping insurance? Premiums for vessels transiting the Gulf could rise 50%. Some ships won't go at all. The International Energy Agency had to release 400 million barrels from emergency reserves just to keep prices from spiraling out of control. But here's what the headlines miss. The countries that suffer most aren't the United States or Iran. They're the countries in between, the importers. Japan, as I mentioned, gets 90% of its oil through the strait. South Korea, 80%. India, 70%. These are U.S. allies. They didn't choose this conflict. They're just caught in it. And then there are the producers. Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait, Qatar, they're caught too. They're U.S. allies, yes, but they're also neighbors of Iran. They share the same water. They breathe the same air. And when the strait closes, their oil doesn't move either. Imagine being Saudi Arabia. You have the world's second largest oil reserves. You've spent billions building ports, pipelines, infrastructure, and your entire export strategy depends on a strip of water controlled by your regional rival. This is what philosophers call a tragedy of the commons. The concept comes from Garrett Hardin, who wrote about shared resources, like a common pasture, that everyone uses but no one owns. In a tragedy of the commons, each individual acts in their own self-interest, and eventually the resource is destroyed. Hormuz is the opposite. It's a commons that everyone needs, but no one fully controls. And when one actor decides to use it as a weapon, everyone suffers. The economist Anas al-Haji put it bluntly, "Ending the war doesn't mean ending the crisis. Bringing production back to pre-war levels takes time, especially for LNG. You can't just flip a switch. You can't just tell tankers to start moving again. The chaos lingers. The uncertainty persists. The damage outlasts the conflict." Part 4. Lessons from History, the Tanker War. This isn't the first time Hormuz has been a battlefield. In the 1980s, during the Iran-Iraq War, the Strait became the center of what was called the Tanker War. Iraq, trying to cripple Iran's economy, attacked Iranian oil tankers. Iran retaliated by attacking tankers from countries that supported Iraq. It was a cycle of violence that pulled in navies from around the world. Kuwaiti tankers were reflagged as American so the U.S. Navy could protect them. European warships patrolled the Gulf. The conflict internationalized. And then on July 3, 1988, came the tragedy that no one talks about enough. The USS Vincennes, an American guided missile cruiser, was engaged in a skirmish with Iranian gunboats. Tensions were high. Radar operators misinterpreted signals. They shot down Iran Air Flight 655. 290 civilians, 66 children, a plane full of families on a routine flight to Dubai, gone. The United States called it a tragic accident. Iran called it murder. The International Court of Justice eventually ruled that the U.S. had to pay compensation, though it was framed as an ex gratia payment, not an admission of liability. 290 lives lost because of a mistake, because of confusion, because of the fog of war. The philosopher Karl von Clausewitz wrote about the fog of war, the uncertainty, the confusion, the chaos that makes every military operation unpredictable. But what happened on July 3, 1988, wasn't just fog. It was the reality of operating in a narrow strait where mistakes have no room to breathe. When you're in open ocean, you have space, you have time, you can verify, confirm, decide. When you're in a 33-kilometer strait, you don't. You have seconds. You have to act. And sometimes you act wrong. This is the lesson of history that gets lost in headlines about oil prices and military strategy. The lesson is that war is not a game. It's not a simulation. It's people. It's mistakes. It's 290 civilians on a plane that never should have been a target. As the Greek historian Thucydides wrote 2,400 years ago, war is a violent teacher. It teaches lessons you don't want to learn. It teaches them at a cost you don't want to pay. Part 5. The Future of the Strait. So where do we go from here? Analysts are already talking about alternatives. Pipelines across Saudi Arabia to the Red Sea, more LNG terminals that bypass Hormuz, floating storage units that can wait out disruptions. But these are partial solutions, expensive ones, slow ones. The Strait of Hormuz will remain what it's always been, a choke point, a vulnerability, a lever that someone can pull whenever they decide the cost of not pulling it is too high. Alex Mills, an analyst at the Atlantic Council, wrote, "The geopolitical genie is out of the bottle. By leveraging geography to disrupt global trade, states can boost their strategic position at a relatively low cost. That's the danger. Not just that Iran did it, but that others will learn from it. That every country with a choke point will realize they have leverage. That geography will become a weapon system. The Malacca Strait, the Suez Canal, the Bab el-Mandeb, the South China Sea. Every narrow passage, every vulnerable point becomes a potential pressure point. And in a world of rising nationalism and declining trust in international institutions, who stops them? The United Nations? Its Security Council is paralyzed. The International Maritime Organization, it has no enforcement power. The United States, it's one of the parties to the conflict. This is the world we're entering. A world where the old rules don't apply, where geography is strategy, where 33 kilometers can hold the global economy hostage. Conclusion: geography is destiny? I want to end with 3 questions. Questions I don't have answers to, but questions I think we all need to sit with. First, when a narrow strait can cause a global crisis, how do we balance national sovereignty with the common interest of humanity? Iran has a right to control its waters, but does that right extend to closing a passage that the entire world depends on? Where is the line? Second, is asymmetric warfare, the strategy of the weak against the strong, a legitimate tool, or does it simply ensure that conflict never ends? Iran cannot defeat the US militarily, so it uses other means. Is that acceptable? Is it inevitable? Is there a better way for the weak to be heard? Third, when oil prices rise, who really pays? Not the politicians, not the strategists, not the generals, ordinary people. In India, in Japan, in Europe, in America. People trying to heat their homes, fill their tanks, feed their families. They pay. They always pay. The ancient Greek historian Herodotus wrote that geography is destiny. He meant that where you live shapes who you are, what you can do, what you become. For the countries around the Gulf, that's true. Their destiny is tied to a narrow strip of water. But in 2026, after the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, we learned something else. Geography is not just their destiny, it's ours too. Thank you for listening. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to understand why 33 kilometers matter. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And remember, in a world of choke points, the most valuable skill is seeing around corners. This has been the Hormuz Leverage.